scene all day, and we're going to start with News Channel 3's Stephanie Skurlock. She'll kick off our coverage with the latest look of downtown flames. Then Melissa Moon will be bringing us a report on the more than 200 firefighters who found themselves working hour upon hour trying to put out these fires, and did a pretty darn good job, too. Church members are devastated at the loss of their church, and Andy Wise talked with parishioners about their loss and their hope for the future. And as you probably know, several streets were shut down so that fire crews could get their jobs done. Tom Powell will help you get around downtown this evening, and it looks like it may be longer than that as far as the effect on traffic. Let's start our Team 3 coverage off right now with News Channel 3's Stephanie Skurlock. You've been checking into what firefighters are finding out about the investigation and what might have caused this huge fire.
Richard, they had a news conference about an hour and a half ago, and the latest that we know is that they still don't have a cause for this fire, but what they do know is that the fire started in the basement of the church. And they say they're looking at all aspects of what could be the reason behind this fire, and they're not specifically honing in on any particular thing, but they say they are looking at arson. And to tell you a little bit about the history of this church has complained to police before about vagrants breaking in to the basement of the church. And again, that's not to say that that is the reason behind this fire, but they are looking into all aspects of the fire. But the one thing that everyone involved can agree on is that this is a historic day in Memphis, one in which we lost history. We lost buildings that had been here for a very long time, and we also had a historic making day as far as the firefighters and their efforts, because this is the first time ever there have been 2 three-alarm fires at the same time.
Immediately got up, looked out my window here, and I mean, it was just totally blazed. It looked like daylight.
This is what Latrice Wilson saw when she looked out her 11th floor apartment window. A huge ball of fire willing to travel where the wind would blow.
And I was just concerned that something would collapse and fall over to this building. So
the fire started at the First United Methodist Church. When firefighters arrived, fire brewed in the basement and quickly worked its way up until the entire building was engulfed in flames.
We had crews certainly putting out dumpsters. We had crews certainly south of this property. There were a couple of spot fires. Certainly those embers will just kind of travel.
Embers traveled blocks away to 3 buildings around Court Square. They were all being renovated into the new Court Square Center. The court annex almost totally gone. The old Rhodes Jennings building burned, and so did the historic Lincoln American Tower. What the building's developer worked 8 years to save was gone in a matter of hours.
Well, you start from scratch. It's not a setback. You start from scratch, retool. In some ways it can make things easier. In some ways it makes it much harder.
Now, the investigation into these fires is moving into a new phase. The fire department has basically kind of moved out of this area around the church. There was a number of fire trucks here, but now there are only 2 left, and they've set up a barricade here around the church. And what that is for is so the ATF can go in and begin its part of the investigation. And I tell you, Richard, it is going to be probably a little while before we actually know what the exact cause is. It's been a long day, a tough job for firefighters.
They have been busy. In fact, they're now rolling out some more hoses, I see, probably to put out some hot spots, so their job is by no means done. But thank you very much, Stephanie. We'll be checking back with you later. Melissa Moon has had a long day for us, and she's been following the tremendous effort, the heroic effort, really, by firefighters around town who've been trying to put out not only the fire down the block on Court Square, where she's located, but here at First United Methodist Church. Melissa, what have you got for us?
Well, Richard, I can tell you that this morning there were embers that were raining down on Court Square, and for a time firefighters were concerned that the inferno here might spread to surrounding buildings. In fact, there are ashes all over the place. Now, there has been a lot of revitalization on Court Square over the last year and a half, and developers back in August began renovating the buildings here with plans to put in a supermarket as well as retail space and condominiums. Now it looks like one of those buildings will have to be torn down.
Some frightening moments as people living in the Exchange apartment building on Court Square evacuated their building as a precautionary measure and watched as these historic buildings burned.
Get right here, man. You got fire right here.
At one point, an ember from the blaze even caught a dumpster on fire. Sean Huddleston lives on the 15th floor of the Exchange building. He says the commotion from the first fire 2 blocks away woke him up, and says when he looked out his window, he saw that the Court Annex building was also on fire.
This rooftop here had a small, like, I guess football-sized fire on it, but the engines I flagged down said that was the light. You know, like floodlights, but I told them the building had no electricity.
Huddleston says it took about 45 minutes for firefighters to make it this way. Fire officials say they don't know what happened and will be checking the times, but say firefighters had their hands full.
It gets a little chaotic when you have 2 large fires going all at once. So sometimes, you know, it's difficult to get messages.
Fire officials say the wood frame construction caused the fire to spread quickly, and say firefighters' biggest challenge was reaching the flames.
Fortunately, we do have 100-foot aerial ladders. We have ladders pretty tall, but when we talk about 12, 14, 15 floors up, it gets a little tough, but we do have hose screens that can penetrate those upper floors. But the firefighters, surely they will actually navigate those stairs, take hoses up, and they'll do it in a safe way, but that's how we do it.
Now, the call for the first fire came in at 2:39. Fire officials don't know when the second call came in, but say that firefighters responded here within 10 minutes. And we're told that this building right here, the Court Annex building, could come down as early as tomorrow. Reporting live downtown, Melissa Moon, News Channel 3.
All right, thank you, Melissa, for your hard work. You know, First Church has survived so much. The Civil War, the yellow fever epidemic, the Civil Rights Movement. In fact, somebody joked with me today that there was a time when if this thing had caught fire, say, in the late 60s, nobody downtown would have noticed because there was nobody downtown. But that certainly isn't the case now. Downtown enjoying quite a renaissance and revitalization, and that meant that a lot of people were affected earlier today, Claudia.
That's right, Richard. You know, downtown Memphis awoke to what may have seemed like a nightmare to them. Parts of downtown Memphis on fire. Now, people living just steps from the burning buildings at Court Square were shaken out of their sleep by fire alarms. They were running through hallways and stairwells, trying to get out of harm's way just in case the flames reached their building. Now, some in the Exchange building, which is just a block away from Court Square, say they even felt the heat of the flames. One of the tenants told firefighters about the fire on top of the Rhodes Jennings Court Annex building.
We noticed that this rooftop was starting to catch on fire, trying to get fire engines out here, but they didn't want to listen, and now got demolished buildings.
Fire crews thought people might have seen reflections of light from the other blaze that was burning. All of the tenants made it out safely, and fortunately, there was no damage to their building. Now, those hardest hit members of the First United Methodist Church. It was a heartbreaking scene for them, but they are determined to make it through. News Channel 3's Andy Wise continues our Team 3 coverage. Andy was with many of the parishioners as they got their first look at the church engulfed in flames.
She had to see it in person. The pictures on her TV didn't seem real enough. But when she saw First Methodist steeple splintered on the street, and firefighters growing more and more frustrated with the flames that lapped at the sanctuary, Barbara Summerlin realized it was real enough. The church she moved back home in order to serve again was gone.
But this church means so much to all of us.
Most of all to Martha Wagley, First Methodist pastor for the last 4 years. After an hour of losing her composure, she got it together and did what she does best: console her congregation and promise them a resurrection.
It's been such a symbol of life and hope, and our church has been a vibrant part of this community.
This community is reaching out. Several churches have offered to sacrifice their own services to allow First Methodist's congregation to worship in their sanctuaries. Even the Cook Convention Center said Sunday the center is theirs.
We're a public facility. We have the space available. We just wanted to do what we can to help.
I couldn't come down here for a while because I was crying, so I finally said, I just can't. I couldn't even look at the news. I couldn't even look at the news.
The news looks bad now, but historic First Methodist has insurance. It has friends offering space, and it has a congregation of faith, hope, and love. Andy Wise, News Channel 3 on your side, downtown Memphis.
A surreal scene that was all too real. A beloved church, a place of comfort and joy, consumed by fire. Now, Richard, as always, pictures tell the story, but up close and personal, it's got to be 1,000 times worse.
It really is, Claudia, because how many times have you driven past this church? In fact, I've had a lot of people tell me, gosh, I wish I had gone in there just once. I've always meant to do it, and I never did. But it is devastating to see the damage that this fire did, and occasionally, because of the breeze that we're having tonight, you'll catch a whiff of the smoke that is still smoldering, and you can see some firefighters are still busy at work here on Poplar Street trying to make sure that they've got everything taken care of in terms of any kind of reigniting of the fire here at First Church. We have since learned, since Andy's report, by the way, that the Cook Convention Center is, in fact, where First Church will be having its services. If you're familiar with the area downtown here, the atrium, the glass atrium, is just down the block, and that way parishioners will actually be able to see their old church as they're worshiping in the glass atrium at the Cook Convention Center. So that seemed the appropriate place for them to have services, even though there were so many offers from around the downtown and the different churches here. Now, those working and living in parts of downtown Memphis have had to deal with several traffic detours today because of this damage, and with it being Friday night in Memphis, you know things are always hopping down here, and there's some changes that you're going to need to know about. News Channel 3's Tom Powell is live just around the corner at 3rd and Poplar with that information. Tom?
Well, Richard, here's a pretty good example of what we've got going on down here. We are at 3rd and Poplar, as you mentioned. As you can see, cars are being allowed to go down this stretch of 3rd, but then beyond there, the road is closed on Poplar Avenue in front of the church. Let's throw up a map so we can give you a better idea of exactly what kind of closures we have. It's basically confined to the area north of Madison and south of Exchange. Exchange Street is closed on the north. It's open for east-west traffic, though. 3rd Street is closed on the east, but it's open for northbound traffic. Front Street was closed on the west for a time, but we just drove that stretch of road, and it seems to be open now. Madison Avenue is still closed on the south, but it is open for east-west traffic. This massive fire caused some relatively minor traffic headaches for those trying to make their way around downtown.
It's probably going to mess up for the weekend, but
there wasn't a trolley in sight when we looked down Main Street. Trolley service temporarily halted as city engineers work to determine if these streets are safe for you to travel. MATA buses forced to steer clear of all these roadblocks, like this one at 3rd and Poplar. Passengers seem to be taking it all in stride.
And I caught the bus on Poplar and Perkins and rode on downtown to the tournament.
And usually they go a different way?
Right, come down Poplar here to, where the Justice Center, and came down.
Was it a major headache or no?
No headache at all.
Charlene Hunt rides the bus every day. She says the few extra minutes added to her commute are nothing when you look at what you see there in the distance. Memphis's oldest church burned to the ground.
I lived right up the street there for 27 years, and I just think it was a major tragedy.
And I just got an update from MATA on the trolley service. They tell me they don't expect the trolleys to be back up and running until at least Monday now. They were hoping that they would be back up and running tonight. So here's what they're doing. On Main Street as well as on Madison, they are going to be offering alternative service. They're going to have some buses that are going to be running on Main and Madison. Unfortunately, the Riverfront Loop, the trolley that usually runs in the Riverfront Loop, will still not be in service, and they cannot run a bus on that loop. So again, the trolley service will not be running, but you still can catch service on Main and on Main and on Madison. Reporting live downtown, Tom Powell, News Channel 30.